Okay, the next session is quite interesting. It's on future of customer experience. Or I also belong to financial services. I represent Bank Al-Falah, which won the Best Banking Award in terms of customer franchise recently from the banking State Bank Governor and the Banking Awards. Future of customer experience is closely linked with the future of the digital age, with the disruption, with the different trends, the rise of the media, the social media, and definitely the digital age will change the future of the customer experience as well. Now, to take that forward, I would like to invite and request Mr. Nadeem Hussain, who is the founder and board member of Taamir Microfinance Bank. Mr. Nadeem Hussain will chair and moderate the next session. I request him to kindly join me on the floor. The other panelists, they include Mr. Shahzad Dada, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Standard Chartered Bank, Pakistan. Mr. Irfan Siddiqui, President and CEO, Mizan Bank Limited. He is on his way. He is just, Assalamualaikum. He's going to join us. Sayyid Tariq Hussain, he is the CEO of Emirates Investment Group, United Arab Emirates. Mr. Humayun Bashir, who is the Country General Manager, Pakistan and Afghanistan, IBM. Mr. Rehan Ahmed Akhtar, who is the head of B2B and B2C markets, Telenor, Pakistan. And the other distinguished member is Ahmed Bilal Masood, who is the Deputy CEO of Hawaii Technologies. Now, I would like to request Mr. Nadeem Hussain to moderate the session and take over the floor. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I remember being here a year ago with the house being equally full. So obviously, the organizers are doing a great job in engaging people. And since you are customers of Asfars, it's interesting to see what the level of engagement is, because engagement drives brand. We have a very interesting panel over here, as we did last year, and I think we'll get perspectives from different target market segments, different industries, as to what the customer expectation and experience is, and how they're managing customers. 2015, globally, was the year of disruption. You saw non-traditional players not only evolving, but dominating particular segments. Now, I'm sure you've heard this example many times, but I'll just repeat it because it's very relevant as far as customer experience goes. The largest taxi operation in the world owns no taxis. No, it's Uber. The largest provider of accommodation in the world owns no hotels. It's Airbnb. The most popular media provider in the world creates no media itself. It's Facebook. The largest telco operator in the world has no hardware. It's Skype and WeChat. The most popular theater, number of people who watch theater, doesn't own any movie houses. It's Netflix. So what we've seen in 2016 are major disruptors disrupting the traditional way a particular industry was managed. Associated with this, obviously, is the customer experience. As this disruption is happening in industries across the board, the customer management, the customer experience is changing. Let me give you an example of how Netflix manages customer experience. Its most popular serial, House of Cards, was totally created based on research they conducted through their digital television. The difference between a normal television and digital television, or watching television on a mobile, is that you know who's watching, and if you've done your initial customer sign up, what the sex of the individual is, what the age of the individual is, at what time they're watching, which programs they watch as well. That's very, very specific as compared to people meters. So it was based on this feedback, and now they're doing this more and more often, based on their research of what are people watching, which actors they like, which producers they like. They are now creating programs. They're actually reverse engineering this. And House of Cards was the first one. They're now getting into multiple serials, again, based on digital marketing experience as to what the customer expectation is. In Pakistan, we have this panel, and along with your questions, I will also be asking them questions. Because everybody, if you talk to them, they say we're a customer-centric company. I don't think there's anybody over here who would not have that claim that we are customer-centric. If you are customer-centric, then I think we'll explore more what is the customer satisfaction processes and matrices you actually use. How well do you reward senior management based on customer satisfaction? In the bonus that you give out to your senior management, is it 80% sales, 20% profit, or is there a number there for customer churn, customer satisfaction? What is your own leadership as far as customers are concerned? Do you see 5 customers a year? Do you see 100 customers a year? Do you spend 40% of your time in the field, meeting with customers and employees, or you're in your office? I mean, these are just indications as to how customers are managed, what customer expectations are. Technology is a major driver of how we are managing these customers. And during the course of our dialogue, I'll talk to you about some of the examples I've seen, how interesting and how targeted technology can be in terms of managing customer experience, and how at a base level, chatterbots are coming along where certain questions are answered very quickly by machines as opposed to humans. Although obviously, on the other end, people are now starting into video conferences for customer management, video call centers as opposed to voice call centers. So there is an expectation of the human element. There's also a development where base questions are basically handled by intelligent machines as opposed to humans. Steve Jobs said, the chance to make a memory is the essence of a brand. Because what is a brand? The brand is an expectation that you'll get high quality service every time you use that brand. So every time you create a memory, you're strengthening your brand. Every time you provide bad service, you have negative brand equity. Numbers show that 80 to 90% customers leave when they have a bad experience. Numbers also indicate that if you provide good service, people talk to 2 to 3 people. If you provide bad service, they'll talk to 10 to 15 people, because there's expectation that good service will always be there. So customer expectation leads to great brands lead to great pricing and profitability. So they're all tied together. And the last element in great customer expectation, obviously, is great employee management. Because if you don't have satisfied employees, it's unlikely you're going to have satisfied customers. So there's a very strong linkage. I'm now going to move to my panel and ask them to talk to about 3 to 5 minutes as to what they view in customer expectations and customer management is in this changing world. Pakistan is changing as well. Disruptions are taking place, as you've seen already. The advent of, in the financial sector, just a branchless banking is phenomenal in Pakistan, which didn't exist less than 3 years ago. So the financial industry is changing, the telephone industry is changing, the phone industry, physical handset industry is changing. So I think we have a very good representation over here. And then at the end, I'll sum this up and make a couple of predictions, I always do, as to what my sense of customer expectation development is. Irfan, is the CEO of Mizan Bank, which just also won in the first time banking awards, the best Sharia compliant bank. It is the largest, also the largest Sharia compliant bank in Pakistan. I hesitate to use the term Islamic bank because I don't call the other banks Christian banks. So I think it's a compliant bank with Sharia, and for me that's the appropriate term, but everybody can call it the way you want. So Irfan, just to give a sense, 3 to 5 minutes, what your view on customer expectation management is, in specific to in Mizan and in general as well.
Thank you, Nadeem. I think obviously very interesting examples of Uber and all these things, which I was also thinking of mentioning, but mashallah, Nadeem summed it up very well. I think based on my experience with Mizan Bank, which we started in 1997, you may be able to relate to the changing level of customer expectation and the changing needs. When we started in 1997, all we had was one little office with 20, 30 people, and customers were coming in, if they had to wait half an hour, it was no big deal. I mean, that was all in our own career in this particular bank. And, as things progressed, I clearly remember once we received a circular from the State Bank saying that it's now mandatory for the banks to put up ATMs. Not in all branches, but it's some ATMs. And my first, feel for that was, it doesn't matter. Just leave it. I mean, who needs ATM? I mean, they can come and queue at the branch counter, take the money. So 1 year after that circular, Mizan Bank had no ATMs. And really, if I now think about it, a branch without ATM is not really a branch. And, now you start thinking that whether there should be one ATMs or two ATMs, or there could be other kiosks handling through electronic mediums. So really what I've seen progressively, obviously abroad as well and in Pakistan as well, that the graph of customer expectation has really gone up very steep. So, it's like, what you call a J-curve. I mean, it's just gone up like that. So for you to be better than yesterday, you have to be better than that graph. So if the customer expectation is going up, 3 folds every year, you have to improve your services by 4-fold every year in order to register even a 25% increase, not a 400% increase, but a 25% increase. And obviously the reason why, like Nadeem mentioned, it's all technology, it's information age. If one service provider is not providing the right service, whether it's banking or automobile or, telecom or anything, they actually now know who is providing a better service. You go to hotel booking.com, and, the reviews are so accurate now that you can really feel that you know that place before you actually go there. I remember first time I traveled outside Pakistan was for my studies, and it was so difficult to imagine that when you get there, what would be the place like. You may laugh on my ignorance of naive. My first trip outside Pakistan was for my studies to London, and I heard of this underground trains, and I really thought, I used to think that God knows how people would know where to actually get inside the tunnel. I thought वो गटर की तरह कोई ढक्कन होगा, आप ढूंढते रहे इसको, and you just get into there through monkey ladder or something, and when you get there, it's full mansions. So sometimes ignorance is a bliss as well. You don't expect too much, but now wherever you go, you put on the net. You get the most smallest of the details in terms of whether it's a hotel or a taxi or street or whatever. It's all available. So your expectations are getting bigger and bigger, and the challenge is for organizations to manage that. We were cognizant of this fact, so Mizan Bank actually set up what we call as a service quality department, which is been prevalent in foreign banks. I think Nadeem and Shahzad, they were all probably familiar from before we had, and we actually appointed one service quality coordinator in each of our branch. Obviously it wasn't easy because times are tough, expenses are high. So that service quality coordinator was not reporting to the branch management team, it was reporting to in fact to our deputy chief executive, so that there is that independence whether our customers are satisfied or not satisfied. And I think there's some method to madness, and mashallah the growth which we have seen in Mizan Bank, it's 35-40% growth every year in terms of deposit, branches, everything. And I feel that we've worked towards that. Obviously there's a lot more work to be done on that, but you can't really stay complacent on that area at all. So if you're not up the curve, then the customers will either make you come up the curve, or they'll leave you, they'll drop you. So I think that's my 2-bit.
Thank you, Irfan. Most enlightening. I'll now move to Shahzad. Shahzad is the CEO of Standard Chartered Bank, one of the few foreign banks, they call it foreign banks but local focus, still operating in Pakistan. I think there are slightly different customer expectations from multinational banks, or used to be, versus local banks. Now I see some local banks equally strong as foreign banks as far as customer management is concerned. I think it'd be great to get Shahzad's perspective.
Sure. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, thank you for having us here. Nadeem, as you said, I think the business models are changing all over the world. I think Uber, Netflix, Airbnb, all of this. And so is the customer service model is changing, and it's evolving. And I think anybody who does not embrace to that change will be left far behind. I think customer service is in a financial services or in a services business is the core essence of everything we do. And data supports that. I think if you go and look at any data, I think other than pricing, 37% of the people surveyed have said that customer service is the most important thing that they look for in choosing a bank or a service provider. So I think, again, all the esteemed guests of mine, I think we all have been preached the sermon. So I think it's very, very important. So it's evolving, it's changing. And I think, the days are gone that you think of a customer complaint as annoyance, going into the call center and hoping it's going to get solved. Frankly, if you ask me what are my top 3 things that keep me up, it's the customer service that keeps me up. I think I'm here because we have a great, great customer franchise. And I think the only way to stay ahead of our competition is by having a customer's experience to those customers. And as you said, there's a multiplier effect. When they are happy, they'll talk positively about us, whether it's in traditional media, whether it's in social media. And trust me, if they're not happy, they'll make sure it's heard. So I think that's something we need to understand and really appreciate and take it on as really a CEO responsibility. It's no longer my head of retail or my head of customer service or head of this. It's really my responsibility at the end of the day, and all of us sitting here. And I think somebody gave me a good example of, and this is again very basic how our culture also tells us. Think of a customer as a guest in your house. And how would you treat a customer? I think if we really apply that, and this is what I constantly, whether I'm visiting branches, whether I'm visiting training center, whether I'm talking in my exco, I think this is what I'm trying to preach. And I think it's one thing to preach, it's to live with examples. So I think another thing that I would say is really the tone has to be set at the top, and I think one has to really live that value. And I think if one does that, I think a lot of issues can be solved. I think we all know that customers in today's day and age, in the digital age, we are talking about digital disruption, will want to make sure that their complaints are resolved instantaneously in some cases within a tat of 1 day. And I think we at times do have challenges, and I can't sit here and profess that every complaint that comes into our call center gets resolved right there and there. In fact, I'm sure when I leave this room, 5 people will pull me out and say I'm a loyal customer of Standard Chartered Bank, but I've had a problem, and this is what the issue is. The second thing I would say about customer service is I think use those call centers because there's so much rich data there, and really, really think of how you can, how you can learn lessons and how can you go to the root cause. Don't go to the band-aid solution. Customer ka ye problem hai, acha iska ye hard hold hata do ya iska ye kar do. Don't do that. Think about what the root cause is. Why did this happen to XYZ? And how can we avoid it not happening again with any other customer? So that's one thing. Going back to the whole point about digital disruption, I think the real differentiator in customer service as the model is changing is technology. Technology. I think we are investing heavily globally. We are investing heavily locally. We are talking to a number of vendors. Yesterday I had a great presentation from a Turkish firm talking about how we can use the data to help us not just be defensive but as an offensive measure. And there's so much more that's going on. We are launching, in our bank, we, alhamdulillah, are well ahead of the pack, and I'm sure my colleagues here will disagree with me, but in terms of digital, just to give you some data, there's 2.6, and this is between 2010 and 2014. So digital has come into Pakistan, I think we all know that. 2.6 trillion rupees is what transactions of value happen on ATMs. And it's growing at around a CAGR of 30%. 700 billion is happening on internet banking, which was effectively zero 5 years ago. 70 billion is happening on mobile banking. So the mobile is growing at 150% CAGR, the others are growing at 30-40% CAGR. So there's clearly a lot happening on digital. Is it enough? No, there's going to be a lot more. It's going to be a multiplier of 2 or 3, if not more, in those cases. So I think understanding that digital is happening and how have we embraced that, just to sum it up so others can talk about it. We obviously today, alhamdulillah, have 20% of the total value of transactions that happen online, digital, ATM, otherwise. And I think this is on an ATM base, which is effectively, if you take the value, we have 2% of the total ATMs outstanding because we only have, relative to some of the other banks, 100 plus branches. But alhamdulillah, we are punching well above our weight. We have 4 to 5% of the total value that happens on our transaction. So obviously it's some differentiator factor. When they walk into our ATMs, when they get the sense what the uptime is and what's happening, the customer service impacts there. So clearly lots going on in the digital space. Later on I would like to talk about some of the initiatives we are taking. And last point is what are we doing in terms of people, and like I said, it's very much, the tone is set at the top. For me, service is one of my 4 key pillars. It's people, service, controls, and performance. And I think you have to balance these 4 in a very, very strategic manner. You can, if you just go after performance, you will compromise on service and controls. And let's not forget, controls in a digital world is going to be a very, very paramount issue. So having the right controls in place, because you are, after all, and you're a custodian. ये हमारा पैसा नहीं है, ये आप लोगों का पैसा है जो हम आपके पास लेके बैठते हैं. हमारा तो 10% होता है पैसा, लेकिन it's other people's money, and we need to make sure that we act as good custodians as a means, and make sure that that money is secured, safe, and sound. Thank you.
Thank you, Shahzad. I'll now move to Humayun. A lot of you already know Humayun. He's not only the GM for IBM Pakistan and Afghanistan, but also is the thought leader on the technology side, and I've seen him in different forums, and he has some very interesting thoughts. So Humayun, specifically, rather than talk about IBM, it'd be better, if you could talk more about your vision and perspective of the changing customer experience, given the disruptions that have taken place. How are we now going to manage customers in a different manner?
Right, the ball game is changing. Today's brands and businesses are playing a new game. It's not a steady state to go ahead. It is a zigzag, and the new plans and new ideas and new companies are the winners, and they are totally changing the marketplace. No longer can a business just sit on its laurels and its success and think of riding out the wave. There are new challenges out there. Just as we look at couple of examples, I mean, look at WhatsApp. I want to look at it from the perspective of WhatsApp did to you and me, but more importantly, what it did to the telecom companies, the 5-6 companies that are operating in Pakistan. Their product was SMS. They used to sell SMS and used to pay for SMS. Now you use WhatsApp. And what have you started to do? You started to make international calls on WhatsApp free of charge. So you're undermining even the Skype and the landline and the international line and the mobile phones. So their business and revenue is being challenged. We are looking at 70, 80 million or more mobile phones in the country. But we are only looking at a very small number of bank accounts in the country. So what is going to happen in terms of money transfer? Nadeem is already a pioneer himself in this area. And what he has brought, the changes he has brought about, the banks are worried. So technology, the customers are using the technology, and even my Chowkidar and my cook, etc., they are using this kind of technology to transfer money. That is at the very low end. Now, if we sit back and see what has happened and what is going to happen, that will give you a little bit of perspective. We say we are in a digital revolution, so we have come out of an industrial age of 250 years, and now we have entered a few years ago the digital age. These ages or these cycles have 3 stages. One is the invention stage, the other is the application stage, and then a big transformation takes place, just like it did in the industrial age. Car production, airlines, and everything. So where are we in this digital age cycle? Now we have just entered a few years ago the transformation phase. We have the inventions. The applications came in the last 10-20 years, which were basically the internet application to Google, the Facebooks, the Twitters, the online banking systems, customer relationship modules, etc. We are now entering the transformation stage. What does that mean? It means that the building blocks of all technologies and all concepts are there. The companies that come and connect these dots together are the ones that will create, not just compete with an incremental margins, will create new business models and will go to the customer, and the customer is asking for all this. So why would somebody, a company or a customer, go to a particular idea or a particular model, or the startups which are creating new business models? Because they are resonating with them. They are creating an information need. They are satisfying a particular or creating a particular market, like Apple did at one time. And if you look at the market today, even in Pakistan, you see a lot of fusion of the physical with the digital. The fusion of the physical with the digital. Look at Sana Safinaz as a brand. They have stores out there. But how many of you, at least your wives have, I'm sure, go on the website and see what kind of offerings and business and customer experience they are giving there? Call Liberty Books. You go to Liberty Books, one of the finest bookshops in the country. So call Liberty Book or go to the website. What will happen? I was pleasantly surprised to see, as I was looking for a book, Game Changers by Peter Finsk. I wanted that book because I heard so much about it. And a window popped up. And there was, "Sir, can I help you?" on this window. Hey, what is this? Somebody following me? So, I mean, this was my first reaction. So I didn't expect this from Liberty Books. So, yes, I am looking for a book, sir. Which book? And I gave him the information. He said, "Give me 2 minutes." He came back and he said, "We don't have the book, but I can order you and it will be delivered in 6 weeks." And I ordered the book online, and lo and behold, it was delivered in 6 weeks, right? So, and then there is a follow-up email asking me and telling me similar books on game-changing digital technology. Now they know, they have profiled me. They know what my interests are. So what other books I have looked at. They even have information what I looked at, that I went to Amazon, I went to other places. Right. Today, I work for IBM, so we sell a lot of, we install and help the customers with a lot of software and solutions. Each organization is being discussed. There is something about Mizan Bank, as I spoke to Irfan the other day, that I've done an analysis using the IBM Watson computer of what is being said about Mizan Bank on Twitter, on Facebook, etc. So, like Nadeem mentioned, that good service and bad service multiplies 10 times because they talk to 10 people. The bad news is they talk on social media. So it's not 10 people, it's thousands of people. And if it is a story of a fly in a pudding, then it goes viral. It goes to millions of people. And organizations need to react very quickly to that. You know, some of the FMCGs, large corporations, they have departments just monitoring the web and what is going on. So basically, what the customers and the companies are doing and they need to do is to create a digital market presence out there, to interact with the customer, to build a brand about people and products, about making life better, about building a relationship with the customer, about building an experience with the customer, bringing design thinking, their ideas and their things on the table, and interacting to develop their product the way they want it. So that kind of interaction is needed. Not just something that we think we can sell, but something what they are asking for.
Thank you, Humayun.
Thank you.
And I know this is a topic
I know I can
which,
go
which
on.
you have huge passion about, and you can continue the entire day. It shows the indication of your passion. I'd like move to Tariq. Tariq represents an investment bank, Emirates Investment Bank, has been around and have done some interesting stuff in Pakistan. There, obviously, the first two people, we're talking about mass number of customers because they have a retail side as well. In Tariq's perspective, it's a handful of customers with large deals. How is that customer management experience different, Tariq, and what are the expectations?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. What I've done recently, I've moved from Emirates Investment Group. So I've come back to Pakistan. And my full-time job now is as a consultant to the Hunar Foundation. So that's what keeps me busy.
Thank you, Asfar, for giving me that update.
But what happened is over the last 14, 15 years, I've actually moved across different industries. Because when I came to Pakistan in 2005, it was to set up Emirates Global Islamic Bank. And up there, one of the key concerns that we had from a customer experience point of view was that what is the customer looking for when he walks through a branch? He's looking not only for a banking product, but he's looking for some sort of feel that the product is Sharia compliant and Islamic. From there, when I moved to Emirates Investment Group in the UAE, Emirates Investment Group in the UAE is a private equity house. So they invest in private equity deals, like they invested in Emirates Global Islamic Bank, and that was one of their smaller investments. So we did aviation, we did agriculture, and there you realize that the different investee companies have different customers and different drivers. Having said that, the basics are that in a private equity house, you do not have relationship like you would in a commercial bank. You're as good as your last deal. And so customers will come to you if they're doing if two things happen. Number one, you continue to do the deals successfully. And number two, that you give your investors a return on investment which reflects the risk that they are taking coming into private equity investments, which is high return. Hunar Foundation is a vocational and technical training institute for underprivileged youth. It's an NGO. So young men, women come in and they take vocational training. So for example, for men it would be air conditioning, mechanical, electric, plumbing, welding. And that is our customer. So we get these people in, they are young, they have a basic qualification of being metric. We bring them into the institute and they have an expectation that when they leave the institute, they will not only have a trade, but they will have other skills which are necessary to make them employable. Those other skills are lifestyle skills, IT, English, because at the end of the day, when they walk out and they do their exam on the basis of a City and Guilds, which is a UK standard, they should have a skill which is recognized internationally, and the ones who are better equipped will eventually gravitate offshore. So different industries, different takes. But the thing that is common across these industries is that if you want a customer experience program, you have to have a very clear vision as to why you want a customer vision program and what it's going to give you in return, because it is an investment. Nadeem, you spoke about disruptions. Disruptions create value, they destroy value. You have to be very cognizant of this fact. We've seen lots and lots of examples, Enron, oil companies, banking companies. But if you're clear about it and you feel that there is a need to connect with your customer, the connection with that customer has to be mapped out for the journey its entirety. When did he start thinking about you and how did he contact you? Does he get the process he wants? And when he walks out of the door, does he have that experience that you want, that he's asking for? And then you have the normal thing that you would in any other policies and procedures. Are there metrics? How do you measure them? How do you reward the behavior of the customer? That is loyalty. And then how do you reward the behavior of the employees who give the customer that experience? And the future is really going to be digital. You already experience it when you have a power outage, you call K Electric and they give you an option of actually clicking. And it's fairly efficient unless there's a major one all over the city. The same thing happens with PTCL. And more of your service providers will provide this service. They have to. You spoke about chatbots. There are approximately 20 to 25,000 developers sitting in the US today developing chat boxes. They are very similar to Siri on Apple, where someone comes on, an electronic person, and takes your order. In fact, it's already being done practically, for example, Domino's in Tokyo. Key, you have to show and tell within your organization that this is what my customer will get from all the employees as a consistent process.
Thank you,
And then
Tarak.
you reward that.
I'm going to come back to you,
Sure.
because I want to leave some time, a lot more time for interaction. I'm sure there are very interesting questions people have, for this esteemed panel. We have Rehan. You've heard people talk about the customer experience. You're actually in a very different segment because these are largely financial institutions, large customers with small, profitability, but engagement levels required to be higher. It'd be great to get your perspective as well.
Thank you very much, Nadeem sir. There's an advantage and disadvantage to be the last. A lot has been said, and there's a lot of pressure. But then, if I don't make an impression, I have an excuse. Telecom, as Humayun also mentioned, there's a threat from the digitalization that is coming, which is that some of our revenues are getting eroded. So for telecom industry, it is a matter of survival of how we look at digital. So from a Telenor perspective, and I would say this is a general telecom observation as well, that we have a strategy to complement and compete. Complement is that, and again, before I go to that, there's a misconception that telecom is digital. Even when I joined telecom 10 years ago, I thought this will be like a digital company, while our business was basically selling megabytes and minutes. So we used to sell access, which was SIM-based, mobile or either fixed line. That is a typical business model of a telco. And when these digital companies like WhatsApp and Facebook and Viber and Skype came in, and that's where we really felt that they basically are not only taking away our revenues, but we are becoming what we call in technology terms a dumb pipe. So it has been a defining sort of decade for us for telecom, and at Telenor we have decided that by 2020 we want to be the most admired digital service provider in the country. And then when we also looked at it internally, we found that we don't have the management matrices to really track digital performance, while the performance that we measure is more or less financial. So also on the high level side, we are coming up with the matrices where we can actually measure, for example, how many minutes does a digital user use services which are provided by Telenor or any other telecom provider. And that has really, really changed how we look at our operations. So on one hand, we are complementing. We're using digital as a complement, where how customers order our services, order our products. It's usually through an app or online that we have created multiple examples for other businesses as well. So we have really taken that as a way to introduce and distribute our products. Same goes for customer experience, where customers can interact us with bots and those kind of digital technologies. And then what we're also trying to do is bring our own apps, our own digital products in the market. Because for us, I think it's very, very clear that if we don't embrace digital as a way of work, we will become redundant in a matter of time. And we just have to be, leading in the market as well. And one last thing that I would like to add, which digital has really brought us, is that we have to learn a new vocabulary. Okay. How to respond to a customer in a 140-character tweet. We were used to respond in long emails, and that's something I think all businesses who are impacted by digital, we have to learn new vocabulary of how to interact with the customers. The customers definitely want an interaction which is responded there and then. Otherwise, on social media, there was a lot of talk about that earlier as well, can really take away the story, one bad customer experience to a very different level. So vigilance in social media and new vocabulary is something, it's getting impacted us a lot.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rehan. So ladies and gentlemen, there we have it, a view on customer experiences, a view on how customers need to be managed in this age of disruption, and major disruptions are taking place. And let me tell you, certainly Pakistan is no exception in terms of the disruptions. My own personal disruption is that after a history of 38 years, I'm first time moderating or being in a panel without a tie. Meaning I am no longer part of the formal banking industry, something I left behind and looking at other things. And part of my liberation is not requiring a tie anymore, just as an aside. So we're going to open this panel up for some questions from the audience. I have some, but I'd like to see if people have that, and I'll mix my questions in with them, or I'll jumpstart it if there is shyness from this audience, which I should not be the case. Much prefer if you have a question, sir, please. All of you, or ma'am, observations can follow, but let's see if we can get people to react to your questions. Yes, sir. Could you please identify yourself, and who you're addressing the question to?
My name is Shahid Zaki. I was the ex-CEO of Philips Pakistan and Aman. And I've also been on the board of Standard Chartered. I'm proud of that fact. Question to you, Shahzad, is, there are a lot of regulatory pressures. And being an international bank, you get a lot of pressure from outside Pakistan. So keeping those pressures in view, you face a lot of problems in your customer service. And especially if you want to comply with these standards very quickly. And so that plays a havoc with your customer service. So how are you managing that? And I know that you had this net promoter score. I really don't know what has been happening as far as the net promoter score is concerned.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, and it was an honor to have you on the board as well. You're absolutely right. I think the regulatory environment throughout the world is becoming, the bar is being raised. And it's not just the world. I think it's also coming to Pakistan. So my news to my fellow colleagues is, it's not just the foreign banks that are the ones that are going to be asking more questions or having a higher standard. It's going to be across the board. And I think State Bank has done a fantastic job in ensuring that they are ahead of the curve. I think and here again, I think it's the balancing act between service and control. As I said, there are 4 pillars: performance, service, controls, and people. And they all play a very important role, and they're all intertwined. And in terms of what we are doing, we are really using digital as our friend rather than as our foe. We talked about digital on the customer service, how it can help us both on a defensive and an offensive way. But honestly, we used to have only 20% of our transactions that were digital. Today in retail banking, 70% of our transactions are digital. What do I mean by that? The minute a customer walks in, all his documentation is done digitally. We have gone from an analog to a digital. Now we are going to a digital savvy, totally online, everything. And we are introducing, so with that, and in our corporate banking, 95% of our transactions are digital. We have a product called Straight to Bank, where effectively a customer sitting wherever in Pakistan, with the touch of a button, can do anything and everything with their account, with the right security measures in place, such that they don't have any, any cyber crime happening. And I think today we are the only bank that is connected to the RTGS system, where effectively a corporate like a Philips or like an IBM can effectively transfer money through an RTGS from one destination to another, from one vendor to another, all through a touch of a button. So what does that do? In my opinion, it gives us a lot more comfort from the regulatory point of view in following the transaction, and also from a control labs point of view. When everything is captured digitally with you, it will ensure that human error and collusion and all sorts of frauds that could happen along the way are mitigated. Is it 100% foolproof? Nothing is 100% foolproof. But I can assure you that in terms of the regulatory standards, we are indeed at times the bad boys, the people or bad girls. When people come and say, "Aap hi maang rahe hain aur koi bank humse maang nahi raha, aap to pagal ho gaye, aap ye kar rahe hain, aap wo kar rahe hain." But frankly, this is required. It's only for your own safety. And how am I using this as again an asset? Is what we are doing is when we have all that information, which is perhaps a bit more than some of our other banks are asking, we have a lot more data rich. And as Nadeem was saying, data is going to be a big competitive advantage in service. We will use that data because we now not only know their date of birth and their mother's name, we know a lot more about them, the source of wealth, what kind of business they do, all sorts of things from which we can cross-sell all our products, whether it's a mortgage, whether it is a credit card, whether it is a personal loan. So I think there's definitely technology is going to help us. If there was no technology and the regulatory bar was going up, frankly, the cost would be too prohibitive, and that unfortunately would have been passed to the customers, and we may perhaps would have lost customers. But today,
Thank you,
we
sir.
are much better.
I'm going to impose some rules, the call center rules. So my panelists are going to believe they're in a call center, they're on a clock, and they have to be more precise in responding to the question, and at the same time encapsulate their thought. Okay, so I'll appreciate call center rules for the panelists. Can I have the next question, please?
Is this on? Right. My name is Ali Kazmi. I'm a manager for KPMG People and Change, basically. My question can go to actually the whole panel. I don't want to be selective. State Bank has recently passed a circular for introducing prepaid cards. How do you think that can cause disruption in the environment of banking for consumers? And what are the challenges, what are the opportunities? That is my question. Thank you.
Actually, very honestly, I'm not equipped to answer that particular question. I haven't been through the regulation as yet, so if another panelist is, I'd happy to take that. Irfan is over here.
Prepaid cards obviously is convenient. I mean, it's no different from your debit card. So in debit card, you have money sitting in your account. In prepaid card, you go to the bank, deposit that kind of money, and then it's used exactly as any debit card. So I think this will give more flexibility to the customers because, you know, for example, if you have children studying in schools or colleges, maybe you would want to, have them to have a debit card, but not linked to your account, so you can prepay it by 10,000, 20,000 rupees. So it's safer. So, you know, even if you lose it or somebody actually runs a fraud on that card, is limited to that extent. So I think that will open up a new dimension in the market. It'll just improve one more aspect of customer requirement.
I think, let me comment on a broader sense on that. The regulator is always catching up with developments in the market. If you ask me, I don't see the need for plastic anymore. I think the world of plastic is rapidly going away. If you ask me, I don't see the need for prepaid cards because now you have the industry which is opening an account under a minute, biometrically verified with non-presence being there. So if we are opening 7 to 8 million accounts in the industry a month, then the time will come that anybody who has a SIM has the option of 8 or 20 banks in whom they wish to open an account with, tied into the SIM. Once you have that, then I'll tell you right now, you'll have people will come up with agnostic applications where you'll be able to pull money from any bank, populate that mobile account and pay. So this need for prepaid card would disappear as you create this ecosystem where payments can be made digitally. In 1996, the merchant acquisition business was launched in Pakistan. 1996, 15,000 unique machines in the first year. What do we have now in 2016? 20,000 unique machines. So this merchant network where you're hoping unique point of sale machines. But again, then you'll find out also that maybe point of sale machines are now obsolete. You don't need a point of sale machine to transact a financial transaction. All you require is a smartphone. So this market is changing so rapidly as we talk about this, that the use of plastic, prepaid accounts, very honestly, in my mind, is obsolete. But the regulator is catching up for what there's a need in the market, but the regulator will be, at some time issuing regulations, what we just talked about. More questions, please.
My name is Zafar Subani. I'm doing my own consultancy, and I was ex-CEO of Hubco Pakistan. My question is to Irfan. Mizan, I think last 15 years have witnessed a great mammoth growth. And one of the things which I am noting is that the number of branches you're opening every year. Probably what my feeling is that as compared to other peer bank, the percentage-wise number of branches have increased over the last few years. Is this one of the main factors of your success? Because obviously branch doesn't only help for thing. And what is the special customer handling? Because obviously it's a different set of people, Sharia banking, not Islamic banking, Sharia banking. So what's your update on this? That is the number of branch which has increased over a period of last few years? And what special customer handling has ensured there's such a phenomenal increase of business?
You see, our analysis in Mizan Bank was simple, that Pakistan with a 200 million population and a lot of that in rural areas. So obviously technology has to go hand in hand, but there has to be a combination of brick and mortar and technology. There would be a time in Pakistan where technology would overtake brick and mortar. We realign ourselves in that manner. But right now, my own feeling is that if you have a branch closer to the customer, the receptiveness is more. You've seen even multinational banks, you go to the business district of Karachi, in Jodia Bazaar and all that, you have branches of bank, I'm not talking about Mizan Bank only, within 5 minutes walk to each other. So, obviously there you start feeling that technology can go to a certain extent and not beyond that. Technology would not make your hunger go away. So, in the same manner, I think although I agree with Nadeem and everybody that technology will change the landscape and the world, but sometimes things do take time. You want people to come into your branch network, get a feeling of the bank. If they're putting the money, sometimes they want to see the bank physically being there. And I think one of the reasons why we opened the branches, our vision was always to establish Islamic banking or Sharia banking as banking of first choice. Now, in order to do that, you need to have presence. You can't say that I'll do it without presence, because people in Pakistan are not prepared at the moment. In urban cities, you may have more people appreciating that, but when you go to critical mass, they actually need physical presence there. So I think that's the...
Thank you, Irfan. I was actually at Mizan yesterday for a different context, and what was amazing that they opened a branch every 3 days last year. Having that, you need to have the human resource and the physical infrastructure to do that. My perspective on this, and I'll share it, is slightly different. For me, a smartphone is a branch. I don't need to go to a physical branch, but Irfan is right, this needs to permeate down. What's the disruption I think ought to happen? A 999 rupees smartphone, which has at least 6 embedded apps in them, to be able to open an account with any bank under a minute just by having that phone, because by sending a string, a application that allows you to save, similar to what committees do on a physical basis, an application that allows you to be available for credit based on the telco database and the usage you have over here, maybe a direct TV app that you can then use for education purposes. That's a bank. That's what I see, and in my thought process. Conventional banks need to have branches, but the disruptors will use the branchless banking agents for funding their balance, which are open 7 days a week, 20 hours a day. And then over a period of time, with this price of smartphones coming down and awareness going up, use that as the principal branch. And the need will not disappear, but reduce for expensive bricks and mortars.
Nadeem,
yes.
I would just add here, I think again we all have different views on branches, and I'm more on your side, as you and I have talked about. I think the model is going to be a digital branch with a human touch. I think that's where it's going. And in some places it will be your smartphone. I mean, through my smartphone, I mean, if I take a survey right now, how many people have visited their branch in the last month? I mean, I'm willing to take any bets that the number is going to be very, very low. Because now I understand in the rural areas, maybe that's a different story. But Dolmen, our first digital branch in Dolmen Mall, please go visit that. That is, I think, where things are moving on. We don't need palatial Taj Mahals of branches with 5,000 square feet and with people. You need technology and you need some people in case they stumble.
Thank you. I think any more questions related to this, because what's interesting is, this urban-rural divide, some of these myths are falling away, just like myths like lower income people have high default rates. If you talk to the e-commerce providers who right now just in the infancy, the percentage of orders coming from rural Pakistan is exceeding the urban Pakistan thing. So this expectation that people are less savvy or have less desire is starting to change as part of the awareness increases. Yes, sir.
I have a question about banking that in past the banks were very good, if we say, but now many of the banks are collapsing or has already collapsed. What we have judged from today is that many of the banks are putting money on services. Yes, it is good, but they are not putting money in training of their workers. That is the main factor. Why is that? And I have another question. That does the cream of our bankers or the financier has the potential to create another Agha Hassan Abdi, like to create another international bank like PCCI? Thank you.
I think let's just stick to the first question. If we can have, a sense of the balance, either banks or non-banks are talking about, of percentage of maybe time, or, let me put you guys on the spot. Then I'll answer that myself as well. What percentage of your bonus is paid by the board for a matrices which is direct customer related as far as net promoter score, customer retention, or that matrices are concerned? Irfan?
Obviously, I don't think there's a very scientific way of handling bonuses. To be honest with you, when you mentioned that, I started churning in my mind that we should be doing that. But on a holistic basis, when you're managing something, whether a branch manager managing a branch, a department head managing a department, or a CEO level managing different department heads, there is an element which is coming to you every day of how they're performing in terms of profitability, service, the 4 pillars which Shahzad talked about. And I think the experience actually makes you go in that direction without actually quantifying it that way. So if you're not customer-centric, if customer-centric is the name of the game these days, I think end of the day, whoever is the decision maker, be it branch manager or the CEO, their weightage would come towards that. We have introduced something which we call as a balanced scorecard very effectively this year, especially in our branch network. And all these factors of service quality, our service is measured because our brand is purple. So, we say that purple is the best rated, red is the worst rated. So we do actually mark our branches in that category. And there's a monthly performance award which is given on that basis, monthly. And obviously that translates into annual as well.
Yeah, maybe I'm being unfair, but my view is, if you have a balanced scorecard, which you do, within that there are 5 or 6 KPIs which you are given, and certainly I was managed, based on those KPIs, there's a weightage to what KPI, whether it's compliance, whether it's sales, and what I'm looking at, is there a KPI which is driving 20, 30, 40% of your bonus, which is just focused on the customer experience?
I'll quickly, and again using your call center, the PSPC, which I talk about, people, service, controls, and performance, that's how we look at it. And again, I just like to call something out. It's not just the front line's responsibility of service. Service starts at the front line. It's the call center, it's the teller. But it's through and through the organization. Your compliance, your operations, it's those all functions. And at the end of the day, I remind my teams all the time whenever I visit, and I think this is for all of us. Customer hai to hum hai, warna hamara koi existence ka maqsad hi nahi hai. So I think customer, if you put customer at the center, you'll find solutions to everything.
I'll just add, at least in my company and several others I know, senior managers are measured on customer service because there is a survey. They are also measured internally on employee satisfaction survey, and that is part of the total variable income bonus that we have. I've suffered and gained as well.
Do you have any experience, a view on this as to if you don't have it, what do you think the specific customer measurement matrices ought to be part of compensation for the CEO?
I think it will vary from customer to customer. If you look at banking, majority, I've been on board of a bank, and we had mystery shopping and all the other surveys that are, and there are companies available, and all the banks must be using them. So that is one area.
Going back to the audience again. Maybe you have some questions, please.
Yes,
You've got
sir.
another 10 minutes before I wrap up.
Sir, my name is Sawad Ahmed Khan. Actually, I have a question with you. हम डिजिटाइजेशन टेक्नोलॉजी की बात कर रहे हैं. जब हम बैंक में अकाउंट ओपनिंग के लिए जाते हैं तो एक काफ़ी सारे फॉर्म्स हमें मिल जाते हैं जिसमें हमें सिर्फ अपने सिग्नेचर करने होते हैं. तो माय क्वेश्चन इज दैट व्हाट इज़ द गुड ऑफ दैट फॉर्म्स इफ़ यू जस्ट पुट देयर सिग्नेचर. एंड माय सेकंड क्वेश्चन इज दैट कि कस्टमर सेटिस्फैक्शन मोटिवेशन की जो आप बात कर रहे हैं, जो आप जिस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में जो आपके साथ एम्प्लॉयज़ वर्किंग कर रहे हैं, जब आप उन पे इन्वेस्ट नहीं करेंगे उनकी ट्रेनिंग डेवलपमेंट पे, क्योंकि आपका लोअर मैनेजमेंट जो होती है वो इंगेज होती है कस्टमर, एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का फेस वो आपके एम्प्लॉयज़ होते हैं. जब आप फ्रैंकली उन पे ट्रेनिंग और डेवलपमेंट नहीं करेंगे तो एक कस्टमर नीड, कस्टमर सेटिस्फेक्शन किस तरह अवेयर होगा और क्रिएट होगा. एंड थर्ड थिंग, जो ट्रेनिंग बजट्स होते हैं ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस के, वो सिर्फ बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स के लिए होते हैं कि जी जब दिसंबर आया 2-3 ट्रेनिंग्स आपने कंडक्ट करवा दी एंड दैट्स इट. दिस इज माय क्वेश्चन. थैंक यू.
थैंक यू. आई थिंक आई क्विकली रिस्पॉन्ड. देखें, ये जो आप बात कर रहे हैं अकाउंट ओपनिंग फॉर्म की, ये किसी बैंक को शौक नहीं है कि 10 पेज का अकाउंट ओपनिंग फॉर्म बनाए. लेकिन पाकिस्तान इज़ इन द क्रॉस हेयर्स ऑफ मैनी international organizations when at one stage we were close to being declared a terrorist state. FACTA and other people require you, OTAF requires you to have certain information about customers in Pakistan and globally. इसमें गुंजाइश कोई नहीं है. तो banks are compelled to use certain amount of disclosure. वो ज़रूरत होती है. लेकिन हमारे दूसरे स्पेक्ट्रम में स्टेट बैंक बीन वेरी क्लियर ऑफ हैविंग रिस्क बेस्ड KYC. जैसे मैंने आपको बताया, आप ऐसे इदारे हैं जो 1 मिनट में बैंक अकाउंट खोलते हैं without your physical presence be required. There are other institutions jahan now State Bank has allowed you to go to the customer with a tablet and open account at the customer without having coming to the field, and there's no paperwork. Whatever the requirement is, photograph lene. So these changes are happening. So technology is catching up, to meet regulatory requirement and customer ease. ये आप यहाँ देखेंगे. In a lot of ways we are not aware. Pakistan में जो technology improvements and customer service improvements हुए, we don't advertise them enough. There are very few people, very few places in the world जहाँ 1 मिनट में account खुलता है without having a physical presence which is biometrically verified. So we should be proud of those things as well, of what we managed to achieve. I'll take one last question and then pretty much wrap this up. Ji, please. Achha, I'll give you an opportunity. Ji.
Good afternoon. I'm Mohsin Yusuf from ICMA Pakistan. My question is talking about the digital era and talking about the customer satisfaction. As per my opinion, we should not have different kinds of banking cards, credit cards. We should have one only card. We should have one web banking. I have different cards, different credit cards, different ATM cards. These kinds of cards giving us a problem. These kinds of different web portal giving us the problem to keep these data in a different safe form. Why don't we try to giving people, giving consumer a one card which will be utilized as your ATM, as your credit card and everything. I mean, and it may be you may agree with me or not. We should have one web portal so that we can have more secure system.
I got it. But may I suggest, it's a good idea, come up with a business plan, there'll not be people interested in it. Certainly I would be. It's a good idea. We can look at that. I'm done with you. Thank you. Let me take the last question. Azhar is over here, I think he's earned the right to ask a question given the great, thoughts he shared with us. So I'll take that as the last question, please.
I just actually wanted to ask that, is there any way possible in this digital age, जो आप कह रहे थे कि ब्रांच में जाना, आप शहजाद कह रहे थे कि 2-3 महीने लोग नहीं जाते बाकी ब्रांच में, तो कोई तरीक़ा है कि फ़ोन के ज़रिए या हम अपने कंप्यूटर के ज़रिए जो है वो ये ज़कात डिडक्शन का जो फॉर्म आप लोगों का होता है कि मैं अहले तशी हूँ और मैं नहीं हूँ, उसका कोई तरीक़ा बता दें, उसके लिए ब्रांच ज़रूर जाना पड़ता है।
I think a solution like that is shortly going to be coming your way. You having put that. I think thank you, panelists for very. I think मैं कह रहा हूँ कि lot of people ये हमारी कोताही है कि इस कमरे में जो लोग हैं, some of the services that we've done and we haven't made you aware. So a lot of solutions are available. You just need to make customers available. Thank you very much. I think this has been very educational for the audience, and thank you audience for bearing with us.
आप लोगों से रिक्वेस्ट है कि आप लोग अभी तशरीफ रखें।